Hello, I am Jim Verrecchia, Executive Director of Atlanta Master Chorale. And on behalf of Atlanta Master Chorale, I welcome you to our Spirited Conversations Behind the Scores program. Today's program continues the spirit of our organizational mission to inspire and enrich the lives in our community. We are very grateful to so many who continue to contribute and provide support to Atlanta Master Chorale and to our virtual concert hall. Before we get underway, just a few housekeeping items. Just be patient with us in case there's any technical glitches. We're sure nothing will happen, but just in case. And then this is a live program, and so there is a question and answer opportunity toward the end of the program. You're welcome to put questions into the question box at any time during the program, and we will go through those and be able to present them back to our guest at the end. If you're not familiar with that, it's the little icon is on the bottom in the center of the screen. I'm thrilled about today's program. I'm very anxious for this conversation to unfold. And now to open our program and introduce our special guest, it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce our Atlanta Master Chorale Artistic Director, Eric Nelson.
Thank you, Jim, and hello, everyone. It is my joy and pleasure to welcome to our spirited conversation tonight, Joel Thompson. Joel is from the Atlanta area. He is a composer, conductor, pianist, and singer. He went to school at Emory, where I teach, and sang briefly in Atlanta Master Chorale. He currently balances his life as a full-time composer and a full-time student as he's pursuing his doctorate at Yale. We'll talk to him about his compositional life and about whatever else is going on with him. Joel, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Would you unmute your face so we can see you? There you are.
Okay.
So I am Zooming from Atlanta, as one might expect. Where are you?
I'm coming to you from New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah, I'm doing my doctorate here at Yale.
So weren't you just in Atlanta?
Yes, actually, I was here. I was in Atlanta this past week. It was a sort of surreal experience where I got my hometown orchestra, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, got me to fly down, and they rehearsed and recorded a piece of mine that I wrote in 2019 called La Lluvia for a soprano and chamber orchestra for their concert for young people, conducted by Jerry Howe, their new assistant conductor.
Fantastic. Is there a relationship to the Eric Whitacre poem that starts La Lluvia?
No, this one was a text that I worked on with a Yale student, Emily Almendarez. We wrote it together. It's basically a 10-minute sonic journey of a woman from Honduras escaping violence to approach the US border, seeking a better life for her and her daughter, and separated from her child. It's sort of a commentary on the child separation policy that we're still grappling with right now, but I'm so glad that the ASO decided to champion it. So, yeah.
So this leads to several follow-up questions. One is, I assume this was a commission.
No, well, yes, it was. It was the idea. What happened before the commission, though? It was one of those things.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So that's so part of this is when you get a commission, you can answer this any way you want. When you receive a commission to write a choral piece or an opera or a vocal piece or whatever kind of piece you're going to write, then is there a next step? Is there kind of a process that you've found now? Do you then go looking for a text? Do you look at the text first? Do you just sit down at the piano? Is there a compositional process that you tend to follow?
Yeah, well, the first thing I think is figuring out what I want to say, what I want to communicate. I really like when I really like when the commissioning body is giving me a little freedom in terms of what I want to say. Sometimes they will try and, advise me like, this is a part of the theme of our season, and we'd like you to find something that fits in that. But yeah, I like to respond to sort of my emotional state and how I'm seeing the world at that time. And then yes, since I do work with words a lot, it's always about finding the right words, getting the text in my body. I like to memorize everything that I set, and really get it in my body so that I know how to say it, the inflection, the meaning behind that. And from that, I'll get rhythm and then contour, and then, melody eventually follows.
So you speak it first.
Yes.
Speak it enough times that you actually memorize it as though you're an actor or
right.
recite it.
Yeah.
And from that comes contour?
Yes.
Rhythm, contour.
Rhythm, yeah.
So what do you mean by contour?
Well, I start thinking about, some of the best actors of our time, like Meryl Streep, how if you can say the same thing with just a different inflection, that would mean something completely different. And that inflection advises me in terms of how to contour it. If I just recently set Psalm 13 for the Yale Glee Club. I titled it A Prayer for Deliverance. And it was a way for me to process all of 2020 and the coronavirus. I got texts from different versions of the Bible that sort of fit with what I wanted to say or explore with that text. And one of the lines that I worked with in terms of contour was give light to mine eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. And sort of like the middle of the psalm, and it's the most depressing line of the psalm. And there's choices you can make of going up towards light and then going down towards death. There's you can do the opposite to be unexpected. You can keep it rather static so that then the harmonies underneath sort of inform the meaning in the words. So these are things that I played with. I said it multiple times and chose different ways that I would then incorporate in the narrative of the whole psalm. So that's just one example of what I would do with contour.
I will look forward to finding this piece when it eventually sees the light of day.
Yeah, I can send you a perusal.
Thank you. So one of the pieces that I became aware of during the pandemic was America to Me. Is that the title?
America Will Be.
America Will Be. I'm thinking of the poem. America Will Be. And it was performed in one of those kind of virtual choir situations with different singers in the boxes. Can you tell us the circumstances behind this composition and how it ended up during COVID?
Yeah, I was commissioned by Shannon Lyles. She's a high school choir director from Orlando. In 2017, she wanted a closer for her Freedom Patriot Singers, Freedom High School Patriot Singers. They were just invited to sing for the Southern ACDA convention that year. And she wanted something that fit their identity as a choir. And there were, I think, 11 languages represented in her choir, a lot of immigrants in that choir. And she wanted to feature them, especially in light of the recent anti-immigrant rhetoric that was flaring up at that moment, and still persists, honestly. And so she said she wanted something gritty, and I said, how about Langston Hughes? And then I also wanted to temper that with Emma Lazarus, because I think I wanted to highlight and this is something I do with a lot of my pieces, especially with regards to America, is, I love the idea of America, but the reality of America is in constant friction with the idea, or the ideals, to be more specific and accurate. And so you know, juxtaposing the reality with the ideals was sort of the aim of that piece. And I got a recording from the high school choir. It was wonderful. And then I had sort of just put that piece away. Eventually, I sent it to Galaxy Music, and they published it. But then Alexander Lloyd Blake, he's a up-and-coming choral director on the West Coast with Tonality. He said, send me some stuff, and I just sent him that. And it became really timely and poignant in the midst of the pandemic to sort of hold on to the idea that America will be, especially when everything seems to be failing. So that's how that project came to be.
It's really beautiful. I thought those that are on the call on this conversation might enjoy hearing it if they've not been exposed to it, and would enjoy hearing it if they have been already. So let's give a listen to Tonality's performance of this piece.
Free.
So
Thank you.
one of the questions Q&A is, what does it feel like as a composer when you hear your work given life like that?
Well, I feel like that's the reason why I do it. Hearing other people, interact with that music, I don't really consider the piece done until it's performed, until it's in someone else's body and someone else's musicianship and artistry. It changes from piece to piece. With my 7 last words of the Unarmed, that's still to this day very difficult to listen to. And I find that my feelings change depending on sometimes the demographics that are interacting with it. It was premiered by a predominantly white institution at the University of Michigan, Men's Glee Club. And that performance was so moving to me because I saw people who didn't have a full understanding of the struggle saying the words of the struggle. And I felt heard and listened to in that moment. And that was very healing for me to see people who didn't look like me connecting, all of us connecting to the grief inherent in those words. And then the Morehouse Glee Club did it in Tallahassee. And to see people sing from sort of a lived experience, it was a different feeling than the Glee Club, but both very emotionally rewarding experiences. And I find that changes from place to place. I'm really moved by intergenerational choruses, singing music. So usually in like a church or liturgical setting. I wrote a little hymn for peace called Draw Us Near for my high school chorus when I taught in Atlanta, and that's been making the rounds for virtual choruses as well. And someone sent me a very intergenerational chorus singing those words, and that was very moving as well. So yeah, it's a lot of emotions, usually the emotions that I felt when I was writing the piece, but also just the immense gratitude of seeing people willing to interact with my work.
Please listen to others of yours that I've had the privilege to conduct. See if you agree with this. Is artfully
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. I don't know why.
Well, I think he's going to come back in a few moments. He seems to have, here he comes.
Did that work?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know, sometimes computers are weird. It took a second.
Yeah.
So I was saying, your music is often overtly, inherently beautiful to hear, and yet the subject matter is sometimes difficult. And for me, part of your gift is to give us a kind of an on-ramp. Your music allows us to enter into the experience, and then you kind of ask us not to look away, to spend some time with the Langston Hughes poetry, with the idea of a raised torch and a wall, right? With the stories of 7 men. There are things that you ask us to look at, and the beauty of the music is part of the story for me. It's part of the ache of it. But I also find this has turned into less of a question than a soliloquy, apparently, but I also find that you are inherently optimistic, or at least you try to spin it that way. So there's a question buried in there somewhere. These are all obviously choices you make. You can write anything you want, but there's something that is causing you to write music which allows us to enter into the place to hear.
Yeah, I think that's an astute observation. I feel that that's reflective of the function that composition plays in my life. Not just as an artist, but just as a human being. I find many times that when I'm grappling with many of the issues that become the subjects of my pieces, that I'm using the compositional process to work my way out of the depression, that work my way out of the negative feelings. And in order to do that, I have to hold on to a sense of hope. Many of those pieces, as you can imagine, Seven Last Words, even America Will Be, come from a place of despair. But in order to work towards hope, I use this medium of music, which has been there for my whole life, as that way to climb out of the pit. And so the pieces end up paralleling the emotional journey that I'm undergoing myself as the composer. There are some that do sit in the pit for a while, especially as I'm tackling, I'm feeling the need to respond musically to the same issues time and time again. The hope does dwindle, but still I have to find a way to keep moving on. And yeah, there's usually some light embedded in these dark pieces, for sure.
So I have two more questions, taken either order, and then maybe we'll open it up to see whether anybody who is listening has some questions that they would like you to tackle. One question is that you were trained as a pianist. Your brother is a fine violinist, and yet a large amount of the music you are writing is vocal. And gladly, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it is choral specifically. So I'm just curious why that is your preferred medium at this point. And then the other question is, what sorts of things are coming up? Because you're quite prolific. And what projects are on the horizon that you are excited about?
That's a great question. I think there's so many answers to that. And I think one that I realized this past year, as the world seemed to be ending with this pandemic and it was affecting so many people, is that if I didn't have access to anything, a piece of wood to put between my shoulder blade and my chin, or a piece of wood to tickle the ivories with, or whatever, I would still have me. I would still have my voice. That's not gonna, as long as I am healthy and physically able, the voice is always going to be there. And in the worst case scenario, we can still find the will sometimes and the breath to sing. And so I think I find myself drawn towards the voice for that reason. But also, I love words. And I feel that, I feel that a lot of my music is grappling with identity on a personal level and a societal level. I'm trying to discover myself, and I'm also trying to learn more about the society that I'm living in, the country that I'm living in. And an essential part of identity is narrative, and the way to explore the story that we tell of ourselves is through words, and choral music provides me the opportunity to do that. I've also been venturing out into opera, and I get to work more explicitly with narrative and a sense of dramatic drive and dramatic trajectory. And I think I will be I have some other projects on the horizon involving that. But yeah, even now, I'm sort of melding your questions here. I have a project that was an orchestral commission, but I asked for a narrator to be involved. And it's an orchestral piece exploring the writings of James Baldwin, which his writings have been so essential for me recently. And I got to work with Eddie Glaude Jr. He's a Baldwin scholar at Princeton University, and he wrote a book that was released this past year called Begin Again, is sort of his own exploration of Baldwin's texts and what they mean to him as a scholar. And so I got to work with him in choosing some texts, and I'm crafting a little arc for a 25-minute orchestral piece to be premiered this August. So even then, I'm still working with the voice. I'm still working with words. And yeah, that's just a natural affinity of mine. And also, you know, studying with you as a choral conductor, I just can't let go of words. So it's just a natural place that I go to. And you would be surprised, or maybe not surprised, that it's not so natural for a lot of composers in the conservatory. Working with words is sort of a niche. I'm sort of, once again, on the margins, but it's a good place to be. I mean, you know, some of my peers come to me for advice about how to deal with setting words, and I go to them for advice about orchestrating. So yeah, it all works out. Yeah, I think I mentioned the opera. Well, the opera that I worked on, I finished it. It was supposed to be premiered this past December, but COVID. But it's premiering this December. It's called The Snowy Day. It's based on the children's book by Ezra Jack Keats. And it's just about a little black boy having fun in the snow. And yeah, I'm really excited about that one. I'm actually going down to Houston for some orchestral readings just to check my orchestration next month.
So Houston Grand is premiering it?
Yeah, Houston Grand is premiering it this December. And the James Baldwin piece was going to be premiered by the Colorado Music Festival, and some other orchestras like the Detroit Symphony and Seattle have signed on to it as well. Let's see what else. I'm in the Metropolitan Opera New Works program, and so I'm working on a thing to workshop with them. And Houston's talking about another one after Snowy Day, so we'll see. And I have a choral consortium with Grinnell College, Harvard Glee Club, and a few others. There's supposed to be a collaboration with Cornell West, writing the words, but you know, things are in flux right now, so I might end up setting a text that I want to set. Yeah, so those are some of the other things on.
Sounds like sleep is overrated.
That's very accurate, yeah.
It's gonna get so Joel, this is from Meg Granum-Gercheff, who you were in school with.
Yeah,
sang with us in Master Chorale and at Emory, and is now doing her doctorate out in Kentucky. She has 3 questions for you. Let me pick one of them.
Oh gosh.
What is your favorite memory of singing with the Atlanta Master Chorale? Of course, I like this question.
So many good ones. Well, there was our collaboration with Morehouse for the Alzheimer's. Was that? Am I conflating the two? Wait, there was the collaboration with Morehouse, and then we did that Alzheimer's concert where we got to sing for caretakers and patients. That was a very memorable one. ACDA in Minnesota. That was great. Yeah.
That was special.
Yeah, it's too many memories to count. There's one with Meg, though, that was not so pleasant, where I had a panic attack on stage because we were at Peace Repres, and it was a bunch of people. I think Nick invited everyone on stage, and I'm super claustrophobic. And I had to hold Meg's hand and she had to comfort me that whole time while everyone's singing the Hallelujah chorus. Talk about cognitive dissonance, but yeah. But
there's a new detail I did not know about you.
Yeah.
Jim, when I went away and came back, all the Q&As that were before that have disappeared, so I can't go back any further. I don't know whether you want to type anything in or whether we'll just let it go. I remember reading one when I was perusing them a little earlier. Someone asked that we're aware of the fact that Yale has such a fantastic history of education and training musicians. And if there was anything related to that you could share with us, not so much the work-life balance, which has got to be incredibly difficult, but the actual process of what Yale is bringing to you, what you're learning there while studying there.
I think one of the things that I'm very fortunate and grateful to experience is really working with working composers. So some of the people I grew up listening to at the ASO, Christopher Theophanidis is, now a friend, and I can turn to him for advice on anything. And we sort of share our insecurities with each other, our strengths, our prides, our joys, and knowing that this is going to be a lifelong process, and seeing my mentors growing as well and pushing themselves and seeing what they can express. It just gives me comfort to know that, there's a path there, there's a trajectory, that it's not you reach a place and then you're done. You just, they're modeling lifelong artistry. And so I think that's really great to see. I've studied with all the composers here at Yale, and that's been wonderful. I go to them for different things. David Lang, his music also, broaches the political arena. And so he has offered me a lot of advice on how to walk the line and step out of boxes and not allow myself to be pigeonholed. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. Andrew Bolden asks if he could know anything more about the Met Commission.
So the Met Commission, it's a part of their New Works program. So a number of composers have passed through, Nico Muhly being probably the most famous one. When he was in that program, he wrote a piece called Two Boys, I believe. And then that led to his Marnie Commission, which was an English National Opera and Met Joint Commission. So, David T. Little, Ricky Ian Gordon are a number of composers that have passed through this program. What it is basically is that composers are invited to have a piece to workshop with them. They're very selective, and you're guaranteed a workshop. If they like that, then they'll approve a second workshop. And then if they like that, they will either choose to produce it, or the Lincoln Center Theater across the way will produce it, depending on the whether or not your story fits their canvas. It's one of those things. So I got the finalized contract in the mail the other day. I have to sign it. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I was commissioned along with two other amazing composers, Jessie Montgomery and Valerie Coleman, and all three of us are Black, and whoever finishes first will be the first Black composer commissioned by the Metropolitan Opera, which is not so much an accolade that any of us are really chasing for. It's just sort of an indictment on, on the Metropolitan Opera. But yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what story I want to tell on that specific canvas. I really have a great relationship with Houston Grand Opera, and they're really supportive of me and the sort of stories that I want to tell. And so yeah, I'm really down with them, and I feel open to to explore lots of different ideas and challenge myself in that arena. But with the Metropolitan Opera, I have to be a little strategic. So we'll see how that turns out.
Well, Joel, let me close my part of this by saying that we commissioned you and you wrote a piece for Atlanta Master Chorale on the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, which we've not been able to perform yet because COVID. But one of the lines in there that I find to be most poignant is that those who hunger and thirst after righteousness will be filled. And that is you, good sir. And you take us along in this journey through your music of asking us to seek for righteousness. And I appreciate you so much, and am in awe of what you've accomplished already, and have the feeling that you're only just getting started.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so much. It's really great to hear that from you. You've been such a mentor for me for so long. So thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you for making the time for us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.